Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayami GITTEN Daf Tes Zayin. We are holding on Tes Vav Amud Beis, 10 lines from the bottom of the Amud. Boy Ilfa. Ilfa presented the following question. This is kind of a continuation of yesterday's sugya where we discussed combining various systems with each other. So on that note, we have a shaila regarding Netilas Yadayim. Boy Ilfa. Yadayim, one's hands. Tahiras L'chatzoin. It ain't Tahiras L'chatzoin. Can there be a tahara accomplished by only doing half? Half of washing? Or half washing does not work? Now, what do you mean? Until Sedayim halfway. Hechidami, what do you mean? Ilema. Do you mean the kamashu beitrei miravias? So typically you take a revias halug. That's the minimum amount of water needed for washing one's hands and creating tahara on one's hands. So you take that revias, wash your hands, but you leave over some, and your friend comes along and takes the rest. It's called shiyari tahara, the remnants of water used for netilas yadayim. Is that the case? We want to know whether that works. Yodayim tahiras l'chatzoin in this context means using only part of a shiur, part of the amount, what was left over from the previous person. Do you mean to say that two people are trying to use the same revius of water? So one washes and the other one follows behind using the leftovers. And that's your question? Of course that works. Although typically you need a revius, but you had a revius to begin with. And since this is the shirai, the leftovers from a revius used for Netilas Yadayim, that works as well. But tonight we have a Mishnah. Miravius, or there's a gersa, may the water which has a shiur of revius, noitli yadayim, it can be used for Netilas Yadayim le'echad, for one individual, even two people can use the same revius. Of course, it works. That cannot be your question, Ilfa, right? It's a Mishnah. Ve'ela, rather, the question perhaps was like this. The kamashi chada yada. What if a person washes one hand, and suppose he dries it, then he goes to the next hand. So he's sort of interrupting the system. It's not a continuous wash on both hands. The kamashi chada yada, one hand at a time. Does that work? And that was Ilfa's question. Yadayim tahiras l'chatzoin. Can you do it halfway at a time or not? V'atanan or v'hatanya. Of course it can work. Hanoito yaday achas b'netila v'achas b'shtifa yadav tahiras. Even if a person washes his hands in the following manner. Achas b'netila. One hand he actually washes. So he pours water over that hand. V'achas b'shtifa. Achas. The first one is Natil, he actually washed it. V'achas b'shtifa, Rashi says, means he actually rinsed it, meaning he immersed it, like he was toivel in a river. So he employed two different methods, totally different systems. We know that if a person is toivel his hands, in a mikveh, in a river, it works. And we know that a person who washes his hands by rinsing water over the hand, it works as well. But even if he splits the system, one hand like this, one hand like that, it works. Yadav tahiras. So, if two separate systems can work on the same person, of course, if he is noitel both hands, but does it separately, washes one hand, dries it, then washes the other, of course it can work. If even two different methods can work, certainly washing both but just separately can be combined and be considered one washing, and it works. So that cannot be Ilfa's question. We have a Mishnah or a Brisa which tells us that it works. Rather, the question was in the following case. The Kamashi, he washed palga the other, half a hand at a time. So he washes half his hand and dries it, then washes the other half of that same hand. Now that's a question. because he didn't wash a hand at once. Says the Gemara, of course it doesn't work. In the base medrash of Rav Yanai, they tell us, Yodayim ain't tahiris lechatzon. You can't be matar your hands halfway, half at a time. There was a takana to wash your hands. At least it has to be one hand in totality. It can't be a half at a time. So of course that's no good. If he washed half and dried it, completely dried it, and then washed the other half, the first half is sort of, it's gone. It's not going to relate to the second half. It's not a continuous masa. So apparently, Ilfa's question was, De'ika mashke tefech. He washed half a hand, but he didn't completely dry it. There's still some, it's still moist. And then he proceeds to wash the second half of that same hand. Now, that's a good question. Do we still see the first half as though it's in the midst of being washed, and now it could combine and join the second half, and it's considered one, complete washing, or not? What good is it to have a little moisture? Moisture is not actual water. You don't have the actual washing in front of you. It's gone. It's over. It's as good as dry. How do we know that? Vatanan. Listen to this Mishnah on Maseches Taharis. That moisture is not considered like actual liquid. Hanitzak. If one pours vakatafris, or if there is water running down a slope, umashka tefech, or moisture, all these forms of liquid, all these variations, don't constitute a connection. So for instance, in the case of a nitzik, water being poured from one kli which is toher into another kli which is tummy. Do we say that the tumah sort of jumps back at you, travels back up to the first kli and is metame that first kli? The next case, hakatafris. You have water sliding down a mountain, going down a slope. There's tumah on bottom. Does that tumah sort of conduct backwards, go back up, and metame upstairs? Umashka tefeach. You have one body of water here, one body of water here, and there's some mashka tefeach, some moisture in between. Does that form a connection? No. It doesn't conduct tumah to each other. It doesn't conduct tahara to each other. Tahara would be like this, that you would have 20 sa'ah, which is a half amount for a half a mikvah, and another 20 sa'ah on the other side, and you have this sort of gush connecting them. It doesn't make a connection. So clearly, mashka tafeach is insignificant. It's not reckoned as liquid. It's not mashka. And just like you can't connect two things and make them as one, because it's not seen, it's not reckoned with, it's not chashiv. Regarding Netilas Yadayim as well. He washed half his hand, and it's sort of dry already. It's only a bit moist. It's over, it's gone. It's a past event. So when he proceeds to wash the second half of his hand, it's disconnected from the first half that's been washed already, and is as good as dry. So of course it doesn't work. So what's the question of Ilfa? Oh, apparently we're speaking the ikotefech lahatfiach. Oh, it's more than just moist. It's really wet. It's wet enough that if you come into contact with that moisture, you can actually transfer that moisture to something else. There's enough there to allow for a transfer. It's tefech lehatfiach, to make something else moist. That's our question. So the first half of his hand is very wet. Should we still consider should we consider it like it's still hair, so to speak, and therefore when he washes the second part of his hand, it's one single masa netila? It's as though he did them together. Rashi says, "Commander Avid Bahadi Adadi." Or should we say no? That pot has been poured on, it's over. And now comes the second half, you can't combine. Can't be mitzaref. Says the Gemara, Hanami Tanina. Well, this as well has been learned elsewhere, that of course it works. Tefech la tefech is a chibur. If there's a high level, a high degree of moisture, tefech la tefech is considered real liquid. It can connect bodies of liquid to each other, and in our case, we consider the whole hand has been washed at once. Says the Gemara, no, perhaps Dilma le'inyan mikvois, even though the Brisa does tell us that tefech amnas latfiach can make a connection, but it wouldn't necessarily prove our point. It wouldn't be. It can't really tell us anything regarding netilas yadayim. Perhaps it's a special halacha unique for mikvah. Rabbi Yehuda, based on Rabbi Yehuda's shita, the Snan. Mikvah sheyesh by arbaim sa. Mechuvanus. You have a mikvah with exactly the right amount of water, 40 sa. V'yardu shnayim b'tavlu. Two individuals go into the mikvah to be tayvel. So b'zeh achar zeh, Reuben goes in, comes out with some water on him. Now the mikvah is missing. Is less than a shear. So we say Rishon tar. Reuben was tar. Vasheni tar. But Shimon, it's too late. Your mikvah doesn't have 40 sa because Reuben had taken some of the water with him. For Rabbi Yehuda Omer, there's an exception. In the following case, suppose Reuben, on his way out, positioned himself on top of the mikvah, so his feet are still in contact with the water of the mikvah. We employ the concept called good aches. We pull down, so to speak. We have the water hovering, the water on his body, which is hovering above the mikvah, is sort of dragged down into the mikvah. It connects to the mikvah. It's like one continuous entity, and now the mikvah still has 40 sa, and therefore af hasheni tar. Shimon is lucky that he also becomes tar in the same mikvah. So perhaps only when you can say this idea of good aches, when the water is right on top and it could be sort of related to the water on bottom, that forms a connection. But not in a case of netilas yadayim, where you don't have the idea of good aches. Half your hand is wet, half your hand is now being washed. Who says you can connect the two things? So in summation, Ilfa presented a question: Yodayim tahiris lachatzoin, or ain't tahiris lachatzoin? He couldn't have meant, well, can two people use the same reviews? Of course they could. He couldn't have meant, can I wash one hand at a time? Of course you could. Rather, the question was, the same hand can be washed in two stages. And the Gemara's conclusion was, well, even if it's the first half is still very wet, you wouldn't necessarily know that it works, and we'll leave it as a question mark. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah. So we all know Rabbi Yirmiyah was well known throughout Shas for his technical questions. So here as well, he presents a question which actually relates to the topic at hand, combining methods. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Hari Amro. We all know the Chachamim made a takana, brought in Masechas Shabbos Daf Yud Gimel, one of the 18 Gzeros to protect the integrity of Truma. Takana was, if a person immerses himself in plain water, mayim she'uven, like a pool, he becomes tamei with respect to Truma. He can't have Truma. What was the reason for this takana? Rashi explains, because they had ma'aros sruchim for tvila purposes. Basically, they had cave water, which wasn't necessarily the cleanest of waters. That was used for the mikveh. After which they would go and dip into clean water, mayim she'uv, in a pool, to rinse themselves. And people used to attribute the tahara to the second dip and say that's mitayr, not the mikveh. So to avoid this misunderstanding, they made a takana. Going into mayim she'uvin or having water thrust upon you makes you tamei for truma. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Hari Amru. We know the Chachamim tell us, Haba, if a person enters Roishay, his head, Verubay, and most of his body, b'mayim she'uvin, in this type of water, or if he is rinsed with this water, v'tar, a person who's tar, shenaflu al Roishay v'al Rubay, shloisha lugin mayim she'uvin, who had 3 lug of this water thrust upon him, he becomes tamei with respect to truma purposes. What if he mixes them up? Bay Rabbi Yirmiyah, chatzia b'biyah, chatzia b'nafila. Let's say he immerses half of himself in this water, not Rosh Rubi, half his body, and he gets some water thrust upon the rest of his body. So it's half and half. He hasn't really violated any one of these takonos outright. So in totality, he was rinsed with Mayim Shuvin. Half dip, half rinse. What is the halacha? Take it, we leave it unresolved. Amar Papa, on a similar vein. Hari Amr, we know the Chachamim tell us. A Baal Keri, a person who was tummy, Baal Keri had an emission, he shouldn't be learning Torah until he is either toivel in a mikveh, or if he's unwell and weak, he can have 9 kav, certain measure of water, poured over him to make him tar. Question is, can he mix the two methods together? Half and half. Chayla, a person who's unwell. Shenasnu olav tisha kaben mayim. Tar, right? So instead of being toivel, you can use the method of tisha kaben. By rapapa. What about mixing them up? Chetze betvila, v'chetze benesina. My take. What if he was half toivel, and the other half was rinsed by water, tisha kaben? Does that work? Take. Okay, so in summation, we had all kinds of combinations. We had the machitza yesterday. This type of machitza with that type of machitza. Could you combine it? Yes, you can. What about until sedayim, half and half? That's a question. What about the halacha of mayim shum, which is matame? So chetzi beviyah, chetzi benefila. What happens there? Likewise, in the case of the Baal Keri, chetzi betfila, chetzi benesina. My take. Okay, now let's go back to the Mishnah. Well, we discussed combining methods as well. So we discussed all kinds of combinations yesterday. Part of the get is being vouched for by the shliach, using the takanas chachamim. The other part is being accounted for by the edim. Okay, so in any case, we have a case over here, very simple, where 2 shluchim come. Or let's not get into whether they're shluchim or not. You have 2 people with a get here. Okay, one says v'fanei nechtav, one says v'fanei nechtav. Mishnah says it's no good. Why? Because nobody said the full phrase. Nobody fulfilled the takanas chachamim, which is v'fanei nechtav and v'fanei nechtav. Okay. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Lo yishanu. This is only a concern in the following case. You see, let's relate back to Daf Beis Amud Beis for a moment. Why do we say b'fanei nechtav? We have Rabba, we have Rabba. Rabba was concerned about Lishma. Perhaps they're not knowledgeable about the halachas of GITTEN and Lishma. That's why he has to testify it was done properly. Whether he's one shliach delivering the get, or even have 2 people delivering the get, and they're both shluchim. Doesn't matter. We want to verify that it's lishma. They have to say v'fanei nechtav, v'fanei nechtav. Whereas according to Rava, the concern was forgery. We want to certify the chasimos, and therefore, when it's one person bringing the get, you want to make sure that it's certified. How do you do that? By saying v'fanei nechtav, v'fanei nechtav. And the chachamim gave him, they gave him the authority. They gave him the amanos like 2 people. We discussed that back on Daf Gimel. Etc. So if one shliach is producing the get, one person is delivering, he has to say. But when you have 2 people bringing the get, we don't need them to testify right now. If it's a question of verifying the chasimos, we have to aid them. Therefore, according to Rava's approach, when 2 people are delivering a get, they're both shaluchim. Is that something unique, something unusual? People realize, well, this is different. And we don't have to mandate the b'fanei nechtav, v'fanei nechtav. So basically, according to Rabba, 2 shluchim, 1 shliach, it's all the same. According to Rabba, when 2 people are delivering, there's no need to say b'fanei nechtav. And that's going to be the topic of our sugya. So again, Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, lo yishanu. When do we say that if the v'fanei nechtav was not said properly, it doesn't work? Ela she'en haget yoytze mitachas idei shneim. That's if the get is not being delivered by both of them. They're not shluchim. And then you need a proper refanei nichtav, and you don't have it in this case. Aval get yotzim dachas yishnei, but suppose the get is being produced by both. They're both delivering the get. They're both shluchim. You don't need refanei nichtav. Kosher. It's kosher even in this case, where refanei nichtav was not said properly. Why? Al-Makasavar, apparently. In this lashon of the Gemara later will switch the lashon, but according to this lashon, he holds Al-Makasavar, Shnayim Sheviu get Mimdin Asayam. When two people deliver a get, Ein Tzrichen Sheyamru. B'fanenu nichtav, u'b'fanenu nechtam, it's unnecessary. Amalei Abai. So he was talking about the case in the Mishnah where one aid says v'fanei nechtav and one says v'fanei nechtam. We say it's no good because they're not shluchim. But if we have two shluchim bringing the get, you don't need v'fanei nechtav v'fanei nechtam. Amalei Abai, El Miyatav. That's the case. Let's move on to the next case of the Mishnah. So, before we continue, perhaps it would be worthwhile to take a quick peek at the Mishnah again on Daf Tesvav Amud Aleph. So, the Mishnah pretty much has three parts, right? In the first part of the Mishnah, we're missing, part of the get was not accounted for in terms of v'fanei nichtav. He said v'fanei nichtav, but not v'fanei nechtam, or vice versa. So, part of the get was not covered. In the next part of the Mishnah, you have a portion of that part was not covered. So I saw only part of the ksiva and the whole chasima. I saw the whole ksiva, but only part of the chasima. Then we move on to part C of the Mishnah, where basically the whole get is covered and accounted for, but not by the same individual. Right? You have echad oim b'fanei nichtav, and the other one says b'fanei nechtam. It's possible. Or you have two on one, two on the ksiva, and one on the chasima is possible. Rabbi Yehuda says it's kosher. Okay? So we're going to focus on these two examples, where again the whole get is covered, but not by the same person. And we say it's no good. So in the first example, we have one aid on the ksiva, one on the chasima, we say it's no good. Back to our Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda says, that is only a problem when we don't have two people delivering the get. But when these people are actually delivering the get, they're shluchim, well, by two shluchim there's no need for v'fanei nechtav to begin with. So you're good. Says Abai, let's proceed to the next case, which was 2 on 1. Two people on the ksiva, and one person on the chasim. Elamiyat. If that's the case, safe. Let's move on to the next example. The Ketani, the Mishnah says, Shnayim oimrim v'fanei nichtav. Two are speaking about the ksiva. Ve'echad oimer v'fanei nechtam. And one is speaking about the chasima. We say it's possible. Rabbi Yehuda Machshir says it's okay. And we're going to explain that soon. Why would Rabbi Yehuda say it's okay? Now, why would the Tanakama say it's no good? Tama de'ein haget yotze mitachas yidei shneim. That's strictly because we don't have two people delivering the get. We have many people here, but they're not shluchim. So unless they conform and do the proper procedure, it's no good. But apparently, if it were so, that get yotze mitachas yidei shneim, that in fact, these people would be the shluchim. So you have two people bringing the get, machshir rabbanan. And even the Tanakama would say it's okay, because when two people bring it, you don't have to say. Is that true? Amalei, he responded, sure. Yep, correct. So basically, I stand firm. I hold my ground. We have two examples in the Mishnah. Both cases, Chacham say no good. That's only because we have only one shliach. But if we would have two shluchim, you don't need a v'fanei nechtav at all. So the Mishnah is speaking about that there's only one shliach, and the v'fanei nechtav was not said properly. It's no good. But then the question is, why does Rabbi Yehuda say it's good? In the second example, where it's 2 on 1, 2 on the ksiva, 1 on the chasima. If it's not speaking that they're both shluchim, it might pligi. How do we explain the chachamim, the machlekes? How do we explain Rabbi Yehuda, who says it's good? The takanas chachamim was not followed. There's nobody speaking about the entire get as one. Says the Gemara, will explain it like this: Mar Savar Gazrinon, the Tanakama holds of Exera, Gazrinon Dilma, Os Yalach Lufe Bikim Shtoras da Alma Beidachat. We had this back on Daf Gimel already. Chachamim hold. Let's say the one who's saying B'fanei Nechtam, he's the shliach, and really the Chachamim, gave him ne'emanos. They trusted him. They believed the shliach, like two people. But since he's only sticking to B'fanei Nechtam, he has no idea about the ksiva. Those are two other Eidim speaking about the ksiva. So if we would trust this Eid on the Chasima, people are going to confuse it and say, well, look, you can certify signatures via one Eid. What about a regular document, a non-get document? Even one Eid is believed? That's not true, right? This is unique to get, that he has the special ne'emanos. So people will get confused. Now, if he would say the entire phrase, then it's clear that it's a get-related discussion. And there's no room for confusion and mix-up. But he's not saying that. The other two are speaking about the ksiva. He is speaking strictly about the chasima. And that creates confusion. Look, you're believing one aid on chasimais. There's room for concern, for confusion. With a regular certification, with a regular star, you'll come to allow even one aid to certify. And that's why the Tanakama says puzzle. Umar Savala Gazrin, Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Because the fact is, look, we require another two aidim for the ksiva. So everybody sees it's a package deal. We have the shliach and the chasima. We have two aidim on the ksiva. This is clearly a get. This is no room for confusion. So that sort of wraps up the first lashon of the Gemara, which is pretty much going with Rava's approach. Again, what is Rava's approach? The reason for Nechtav to begin with is to assure that the chasimas are genuine and real. When we have two shluchim bringing a get, there's no concern because we have the shluchim to be mekayim. The get, Taisus learns, the shluchim are telling us that the husband sent it. Of course, it's not forged. Rashi says they're always available to be mekayim the shtar, or perhaps they're even saying that they know the chasimas. However you learn, the point is two are different. Provided they're shluchim, which makes it clear and highlights the difference between this and a regular case, because it's unusual to have two people delivering a get. So in any case, there's no concern with B'fanei Nechtav in this case. The Mishnah, which does present a concern, because there are no two shluchim. And we have two cases here in the Mishnah, which are both possible according to Tanakama. Case number one is, you have one person about the ksiva and one person about the chasima, it's possible. Or in the second case, two people about the ksiva and one on the chasima, it's also possible. Rabbi Yehuda says it's kosher, like we explained. There was another version of Rabbi Yechanan's opinion. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda Rabbi Yechanan, even when two people deliver a get, you still have to say B'fanei Nechtav. Apparently we're concerned with Rabbas, Lishma concern, and therefore one shliach, two shluchim, it's all the same. So again, Lishna Achruna Amrla, Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda Rabbi Yechanan, Afilu get Yotzei Metachas Yidei Shneim, possible, even if those two people are delivering the get, it's still possible unless B'fanei Nechtav. B'fanei Nechtav was said properly. Almaka Savar, apparently he holds. Even Shnaim Shiviu get Medina Sayam, two people deliver a get, Tzrichen Sheyamru, B'fanei Nechtav, or B'fanei Nechtav. Amalei Abai. Okay, let's go on to case number two. So case number one involved one person on the ksiva, one person on the chasima. The chiddush is even if they're both shluchim, it doesn't work, because it's not one continuous amira on both parts of the get. You haven't really conformed to the takanas chachamim. Right, and like we explained, once you're not conforming, there's room for all kinds of confusions. People will mix it up with a regular shtar. Look, over here we trust one person on the chasim, but let's trust one person regarding every shtar. So bottom line is, unless you say B'fanei Nechtav straight, uninterrupted, it's no good. So let's move on to the next case of the Mishnah. Two on one. Two on the ksiva, one on the chasima. Elamiyata, if that's the case, Sefer Diktani. Next part of the Mishnah which says, Shnayim ein. B'fanein nechtav. Ve'echad oim b'fanein nechtam. Two on the ksiva, one on the chasima. Pasal, no good. Rabbi Yehuda Kessler says it's okay. Afilu get yoytzim tachas yeshnei and pasal rabbanon. They mean to say, even if both these individuals, let's say, the two people that are speaking about the ksiva, they're shluchim, they're bringing the get. It doesn't work. It's no good. It's pasal, because there was no one eidos on the entire get. Amarle, he says, in. Correct, right on. It's true. So the question is, why does Rabbi Yehuda say kasha? But my kamifli, what's the basis of the machlekes here? Why does Rabbi Yehuda say okay? Kasha. The answer is Rabba and Rabba. Mar Savar. Tanakama works with Rabba's approach. If Nichtav is to address the Lishma concern. That applies even when two people are bringing a get. Umar Savar, what does Rabbi Yehuda holds? The whole point is because we're concerned we're not going to find certification. Well, if two people are here, it's as good as done. You don't need more. If that's the case, we seem to have a machlekes tanoim, Tanakama, Rabbi Yehuda regarding Rabba and Rava, which is problematic. Lema, shall we say the Rabba v'Rava tanoihi? Those shitas Rava v'Rava machlekes tanoim, which is something we try to avoid. Lie, you don't have to say that. Rava metaretz kolish nakama. Rava will work with the first lashon of Rabbi Yechanan. The concern is kiyam chasima, so that's why when you have two shluchim that are delivering the get, there's no concern because we have Adam to be mekayim the shtar. So that work with the first lashon of Rabbi Yechanan. The Mishnah is only because we don't have the shluchim, but if we would have shluchim, everything would be good. For Rabba Malach, Rabba will Rashi explains. Rabba will go with the second lashon, that even when we have two shluchim, we're still very much concerned about lishma, and therefore you need b'fanei nechtav. Rabba Amalach the kuli alma b'inin lishma. Both Tanakam and Rabbi Yehuda are concerned about lishma. So what's the machlekes? Vacha b'mayaskin. You know what we're speaking about? We had this back enough. Hey, la'acha shalamdo. We're speaking about the later generations who have already become educated, the halachas of lishma. So theoretically, you don't need to be concerned anymore. But Chachamim left it in place. Ubegzeiro shama yachsher hadavar lekilkula kamifki. The machlekes here between Tanakam and Rabbi Yehuda revolves around whether we're concerned that perhaps the thing will revert back to its kilkul. People will forget and become unaware about lishma. The Mar Savar Gazrinan, Tanakama says we still want to keep the Gzeira, keep the Takana, and therefore even if we have two shluchim bringing the get, it doesn't matter. Even if you don't have a concern about the kiyam chasimas, but we're still concerned about lishma, we want to maintain our Takana. Umar Savar Gazrinan, Rabbi Yehuda disagrees, and Rashi explains. He disagrees specifically in this case when you have two people bringing a get, which is a milsa de l'shchich, it's an uncommon occurrence. Chachamim do not apply their gzeras to unusual circumstances, and therefore we give you a break. If two shluchim bring the get, we don't have to be concerned about b'fanei nechtam. Asks the Gemara, v'liflik nami Rabbi Yehuda b'reisha. If that's the case, then just as Rabbi Yehuda says, that in this case where it's 2 and 1, 2 on the ksiva, 1 on the chasima, which is the second case, it's okay. Because, like we explained, they're both shluchim, and there's no concerns. But what about the first case? Previous case, it's 1 on 1, 1 on the ksiva, 1 on the chasima. Since they're both delivering the get, they're both shluchim, there should be no concern. Why not? Because Kim Chasimas you have, because there are two people here, and they're both shluchim. And Lishma, they know about Lishma. They might forget. Well, like we said, it's an unusual circumstance. Two shluchim, we don't have to apply gzera. So why does Rabbi Yehuda disagree with the first case as well? Now, just side point, the Tosfos Rosh has a lengthy explanation why the Gemara is asking this kasha now, and not on the previous lashon. So, take a look at the Tosfos Rosh. Has a whole lengthy explanation. In any case, that's the kasha now. And the answer is, you're right. Ha'itmar Allah. We actually have an explanation on this Mishnah. Amar Ula, yeah, Chaluk Hayir Rabbi Yehuda Aparishayna. Just as Rabbi Yehuda holds. In case number 2, where it's 2 on the Ksiva, 1 on Chasim, it's good. Likewise, case number 1, where it's 1 on 1, it also works. Maser Rav Oishe Ula. So Rav Oishe asks a kasha on Ula from our Brisa, where it appears not so. Rabbi Yehuda Machsher Bazu, V'lei Ba'acheres. Rabbi Yehuda only maintains that case number 2 is good, not case number 1. My love, shall we not interpret Lemute, that it's coming to exclude the previous case of 1 on 1? Echad Omer Fanei Nichtav. Ve'echad Omer Fanei Nechtam. That doesn't work, even according to Rabbi Yehuda. Loi, that's not what he means. Lemute. He was coming to exclude a different case, where he agrees it's no good. What's the case? The case of the start of the beginning of the Mishnah, where you're missing an entire section of the get. B'fanei nechtam, b'fanei nichtav. You have a shliach coming and speaking about the chasima, but not about the ksiva. So over there, if you hold, but the concern is the chasima, you're good. So why is it no good? He said b'fanei nichtam. You have the chasima here. Why do you need b'fanei nichtam? So you may recall back in Daf Gimel we said because we want to keep it unique. We want it to be clear that it's a get. Otherwise, people will say, well, just like one person is neman on the chasima is here, he's neman on every star. Right? That's called the asil achlufi. Asil achlufi b'kim stars down beidach. Right? That's why we mandate a full expression, a full declaration b'fanei nichtav and b'fanei nechtam, so that it's clearly a get. It's a gzeira. So perhaps I would say Rabbi doesn't hold it as gzeira. So when he said b'fanei nechtam, but not b'fanei nichtav, perhaps I would think, Rabbi Yehuda, just as Rabbi Yehuda a minute ago was not concerned with that gzeira shameyach sadav kuloi, right? We're not concerned things will revert and people will forget. Dilma asi lechlufi b'kim shtoris the alma beidechet nami. Perhaps you won't be concerned about that other gzeira that people will confuse the get with the other star, and therefore, as long as you said it b'fanei nechtam, you're good. Why? We have 2 possible concerns. Ki maget, well, he's saying b'fanei nechtam. We know it's certified. Lishma, well, we're speaking after they learned. No concern about Lishma. So even if he leaves out the ksiva, no reference, no mention of the ksiva, perhaps that's okay. We're not concerned about being mistaken with other stories. Kamash Malon, the Chiddush is no. So although perhaps he doesn't hold of the other gzera, but this gzera he holds of, and therefore he agrees. Fanei nechtam without a fanei nechtam is worthless. Itmer nami. We actually have a raya to the second lashon in the Gemara, which was that even when 2 people bring a get, they're both shluchim, we still require b'fanei nechtav, according to Tanakama. Amar Vida, shnayim shiviu get dinasem. 2 people delivered a get from abroad. Bono l'machleikis. That exactly is the case of our Mishnah, and therefore we have this machleikis between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabban. Okay, let's summarize. A bit of a complicated Gemara. So we have like this. We have Lashon Aleph and Lashon Beis. Right? Regarding the cases in our Mishnah. But the main point of contention here is in a case where 2 people bring a get, and they're both shluchim. The Lashon Rishon holds they don't have to say b'fanei nechtam, b'fanei nechtam. And the Gemara tells us it's based on Rava, whose only concern is being mekayim the chasimis. And when you have 2 people here, there's no concern. And the Mishnah, which does pose a concern for not saying b'fanei nechtam properly, is speaking that they're not shluchim. You don't have 2 shluchim. And we have 2 cases in the Mishnah. Case number 1. One person said b'fanei nichtav, and one person said b'fanei nichtam. Tanakama says it's possible because when there's only one on the chasima, it's asel achlufe b'kim shtaris da alma. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Whereas in the second case, it's 2 on 1, 2 on the ksiva, 1 on the chasima. Tanakama again says it's possible because there's only one on the chasima. Rabbi Yehuda says, well, this case is different. It's not going to be mixed up with other stories because you see, you require 2 people for the ksiva. It's clearly a get. In the Lishna Basra, in the second Lashon, we learn that 2 people deliver a get. You still have to say Fanechtam. It's based on Rabba's approach. The concern is Lishma, which applies even by 2 shluchim. The Mishnah is speaking even when there are 2 shluchim. A proper recital is required. So again, we have the 2 cases. One for the ksiva, one for the chasima. Tanakama says possible because even if it's lacha shalamdu, today everybody knows about Lishma. Gzeir, there's a gzeir, shamayachs, or double kilkulai. You want to stick to the takana. And in case number 2, we have 2 and 1, 2 on the ksiva, 1 on the chasima. Once again, the Tanakama was possible in both cases. Rabbi Yehuda says it's kosher because what are you concerned about? Kiyama chasimas, we have 2 shluchim. Lishma, they all know Lishma. Gzera shamiyach shavel kekuloi. Well, if they're both shluchim, it's an unusual case, and we don't apply the gzera. So that was the second part of the daf, and then initially we discussed various forms of combining things, 2 types of mechitzas, 2 parts of netilas yadayim, the halachas of the ma'im she'uvim, the tefillah and the natila, bo reish v'ruba v'ashuvim and shenafla reish v'ruba v'ashuvim, and then our Papa's case about a balkeri who was half toivel and half showered, my tekel. All the best to you and hatzlacha Rabbah.